Blog Talk Radio.
Mi chiamo Afurakanu Afuraitkaitnut, Neye AKANFO NANASOM, Da Medinde Ojirafo, Kwesi Ranehmpata Akan. Akwamumain Amaruka Etipimu Ojirafo. That means greetings to all Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit people, meaning Africans, black people. Today is AKANFO NANASOM Day, Ancient, Authentic, Akan, Ancestral Religion Day. My name is Ojirafo Kwesi Ranehmpata Akan, Ojirafo of the Akwamu Nation in North America. Yet I say we thank you for tuning in to the show once again. We are opening up the chat room. We're going to place some links in the chat room for the information that we will be going over tonight. If you have a question or a comment in the chat room, you must log in order to interact in the chat room. And if you have a question or comment on the phone line, then you just hit the number 1, and we can see that your hand is raised. For the individuals who are new to the broadcast, we have 3 broadcasts on a weekly basis. We have AKANFO NANASOM, Ancient, Authentic, Akan, Ancestral Religion on Joda Monday night. We have Odwira, which means purification, on Benada or Abdenada Tuesday night. And then we also have Agwu Marketplace on Awukuda or Akuada Wednesday night. With Odwira, we deal with purification. We deal with ancestral religion, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, ancestral religion in general, dealing with how it impacts every aspect of our lives, We clarify texts and concepts and ritual practices, the nature and function of the forces, the nature of the divinities, the Abosom, the Orisha, the Vodoun, the ancestresses and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated, the Nananom, Insamanfo, the Ekungun, Kubito, and so forth, and how our culture is operationalized through purification, how our ancestral religious practices that are innate and inborn, that we carry in our blood circles, that we receive directly from our ancestors and ancestors, are received by us pre-incarnation. So we are born into the world with our ancestral religious traditions intact, assigned and encoded within our krawa, our soul, our divine consciousness, the divinity dwelling in our head region. So we deal with that purificatory aspect of culture from an authentic perspective. On Agwu Marketplace, we showcase Afurakani businesses, organizations, and institutions that are serving the Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit community in a positive capacity. When you go to our Okom Economic Development page, for example, and this is part of what we do and we'll put this in the chat room right now. On the Agwu Marketplace show, we have individuals come on talking about their businesses, organizations, and institutions, their philosophy behind serving the Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit community, and how their ancestral religious values inform their service to us as a community. In that vein, we've also published the Okom Economic Development Model. And that Okom Economic Development Model is an approach to economic development rooted in Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, or African ancestral religious values. It's a holistic approach to economic development. So you can download that model from the website. Of course, it's a free download, the publication. You can also download the 4-part series we did on Blog Talk, Okom Economic Development Parts 1, 2, 3, and 4, where we dissect that model and show its various applications to different aspects of our lives. We also have the broadcast Agwu Koti talking about economic warfare and so forth. So all of those broadcasts and more, as well as Okom Economic Development Model, is on that page. Part of the model with regard to strategy is to starve the beast and feed the pride. That means we make an assessment on a weekly basis to determine what funds we would have potentially wasted with our enemies, the whites and their offspring, at their businesses, and then we starve the beast and feed the pride. We reallocate the funds we would have spent with the whites and their offspring and redirect them to the business, organization, or institution of the week. We are supporting as a community, as an Oman, a community, one Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut business, organization, or institution per week for 52 weeks. So when you look on the Okan Economic Development Model page, you will see the various businesses we have supported so far as a community, 17 businesses so far. You'll see the links to their website. You'll also see the link to the interviews that they did with us on Agwu Marketplace on the show, where they sat with us for 2 hours, talked about their business, talked about their philosophy, talked about their service to the community and so forth, and took questions from the audience and so forth. So you can download those interviews. You can go directly to their website, make your contributions and so forth. And this list is an ever-growing list. So we've 17 businesses so far, and we're, of course, once a week, every week. We're targeting one business, organization, or institution per week for 52 weeks for optimal capital infusion. So when you starve the beast, you take the $10 or $15 or $20 you would have spent at Chipotle, you would have spent at Walmart, you would have spent at Starbucks, you would have spent at McDonald's or CVS or Burger King or 7-Eleven, wasting money with the whites and offspring. You starve the beast, take that $10 or $15 or $20 and feed the prize. Make a donation or a purchase for product or service for the business of the week. If, of course, 1,000 of our people starve the beast and feed the prize for the business of the week, then that would be $20 times 1,000 people is a $20,000 infusion of capital from the Oman, from the community, directly to a black business organization or institution. We will have taken the money from our enemies and reallocated it to our people. That way they can keep their business open, expand their business, expand their services and products to us to serve us at a greater capacity, hire people from within the community to serve us at a greater capacity, and it's benefiting them as well. So it's a win-win situation. Of course, if we do not do this, then by default, we are feeding the enemy. We're feeding the beast. We're allowing them to take our resources and fund their projects for their people and for their children, which is insane. So we starve the beast and feed the prize. So again, going to the Okan Economic Development Model page, you will see all those businesses, and continue to check that page because every week we're adding businesses on a regular basis. So this is what we do on Agwu Marketplace Day. And then, of course, the day is Joda, which is Monday, AKANFO NANASOM, which is ancient, authentic Akan ancestral religion. So we deal with the Akan expression of ancestral religion, number one, because we are Akan, number two, because there's a great deal of misinformation regarding Akan culture, philosophy, ancestral religion, cosmology, and so forth, coming from individuals in the Western Hemisphere as well as individuals on the continent who have been infected by Christianity and Islam, Judaism, white culture, and pseudo-religion in general, and have incorporated those infections into the fabric of the culture. And therefore, even though on the outside they appear to be speaking the traditional language, which they are, and dressing in the traditional clothing, they engage in ritual practices that appear to be traditional. They have woven a pseudo-cosmology into their ritual practice, rendering their ritual practices either ineffective or totally fraudulent. So therefore, we must deal with ancient, authentic Akan ancestral religion. And anytime you study any Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, or African ancestral religious practice, fundamentally the principles across the board are identical, because we are simply aligning with the Great Mother and the Great Father, the Supreme Being, through the agency of the deities and the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. That's what all Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut people do. We do it in our own specific cultural manner, but the fundamental principles are the same. So if you're talking about the Orisha in the Yoruba tradition, you're also talking about the Abosom in the Akan tradition and the Vodoun in the Fon and Ebe traditions, because we're talking about the same forces in nature. The same sun, the same moon, the same earth mother, the same oceans, rivers, thunder, lightning, planets, stars, black substance of space that have sustained us for millions of years are the same entities that sustain us today, the same spirits that animate the suns and moons and stars and black substance of space and earth mother and oceans and rivers and the core of earth and thunder and lightning and the atmosphere and so forth are the same spirits, the Abosom, who have animated and empowered us for millions of years up until this day. So we're dealing with the same forces in nature. Of course, we're dealing with our same direct blood ancestresses and ancestors, great-great-great-grandmothers and grandfathers and so forth who've been connected to us for thousands of years, intergenerationally and transcarnationally through successive reincarnations. So therefore, when you study one culture, you're getting the fundamental principles of any Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut culture. So therefore, when you learn about your own culture and learn about who you are, you can still have a firm understanding. If you learned about the Abosom, once you say, for example, you find out that you're Yoruba, then when you begin to study the Orisha, you'll see that these are the same forces in nature, just approached in your own cultural fashion, based on your blood circle, based on your descent, based on your dietary and social and spiritual taboos that have been forged within your clan because of your experience, which must be acknowledged. And that's important with regard to clan affiliation and so forth. But the fundamental principles, the foundational principles are the same. So, when we deal with AKANFO NANASOM, ancient authentic Akan ancestral religion, going directly back to ancient Kanat, which is a title of ancient Nubia. Kan meaning first and foremost, Kan also meaning to count or to reckon in the Twi or the Akan language. But in ancient Kanat, Nubia, and Kemet, the term Kan also means first or foremost, and Kan also means to calculate, to reckon. Kan meaning the first land, the foremost land, the land of the beginning, the land of the south, and so forth. This is why one of the titles of ancient Kush or Knesset is also Kanat, the first land, the foremost land, the land of the beginning, the land from the south, the front land. And the people called Kanit people, or the Kanitu, and so forth. The first people, foremost people, and so forth. A component part of the first people on earth. But at the same time, Kan means to count, calculate, to reckon. That means the first people to count, to calculate, to measure, to engage in the activity where you're measuring, calculating, studying. That's the foundation of civilization, the measurement, study of the forces in nature and how we interact with all aspects of nature, to count, to calculate, to reckon, to study, to recognize patterns in nature and the forces that undergird those patterns. So just as Kan means first and foremost, Kan means to calculate, to reckon. Kan means the first land, Nubia. Kan also is the Kanit people. When we migrated west after the fall of ancient Kemet and parts of the Kanat Empire, some of our people migrate west and reestablish the ancient Kanat Empire. Ancient Kanat, Nubia, called the ancient empire of Kanat or Ghana, over 2,000 years ago. And we continue our culture. About 1,000 years later, because of Muslim invasions and a deterioration of the neighborhood in that region of north, west, central Afuraitkaitnut, some of our people about 1,000 years ago began to migrate south towards the savanna region, the transitional region, and into the forest belt, into the regions of today's Côte d'Ivoire and the Republic of Ghana. We reestablished Akan civilization once again in the savanna and forest belt regions about 1,000 years ago. So the Akan people reconstituted themselves once again and began to thrive and so forth. A few hundred years after that, because of the Muswokesiye, the great perversity, the enslavement era, some of our people were taken from those regions and forced into North, Central, South America, the Caribbean, and Europe, enslaved and so forth over the course of a few centuries. The Akan people forced into North America, Central America, South America, the Caribbean, and Europe, waged war against the whites in the Arab Spring. You'll find Akanfo, for example, in Suriname, practicing the Akan tradition under the form of Winti. The Akan tradition in Suriname waged war against the whites in the Arab Spring freed themselves from enslavement, established maroon villages and so forth. The AKANFO, the warriors and warrioresses, freed themselves and established independent sovereign communities that lasted for hundreds of years up until the end of enslavement. The same thing took place in Jamaica. The Akan people practicing the Akan religion under the form of Odwira, waging war against the whites and their offspring, establishing maroon villages and maintaining their independence, their sovereignty up through and into the end of enslavement. The same thing took place, for example, on St. John's Island. The Akwamu Akan waged war against the whites and offspring and took over the entire island for a number of months. And then even after the rebellion was put down, others coalesced in Maroon Village. Then you have AKANFO in North America, practicing the Akan tradition under the form of hoodoo. And of course, our book, Hoodoo People, Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut in North America, Akan custodians of hoodoo from ancient hoodoo Ndunu land, Hanit, Nubia. We go into detail about that true story. We practice the form of Akan religion under the form of hoodoo, which is the Akan term for medicine, but also meaning to conjure, specifically root work, root medicine, and so forth, and to conjure the spirits of the Abosom and Nananom for the deities and ancestral spirits. And we continued that practice in North America, and this is why hoodoo means conjure. It also means root work and root medicine and root doctors and root man and root woman and so forth. Hoodoo man, hoodoo woman, that comes from the Akan term undu, meaning medicine, undu, meaning to conjure the spirit. We waged war against the whites and their offspring, established independent settlements in different parts of the United States, and also waged war consistently for decades and forced the end of enslavement because of the Gullah Wars and the wars that Okunfo Yao, Nat Turner, and Okunfo Kwabena, Denmark, BC, and other Akanfo, as well as other Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut people waged against the whites and offspring. We forced them into the position that they were forced to accept abolition and the reality of emancipation. So wherever we have gone, we maintained our culture and ancestral religion. And when we maintained our ancestral religion, it is that which empowered us and guided us to independence and reestablishing ourselves. And we're engaged in that process now. So this is what we're dealing with on AKANFO NANASOM, ancient authentic Akan ancestral religion. That is the foundation. What we're going to talk about tonight is we're going to deal with Adwoa and Adwoa, institution building and continuity, and Odwiraman, within Odwiraman. A couple of weeks ago, we did our first broadcast on Odwiraman. Odwiraman is the term we use for the purified nation, talking about Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, or African black people in the Western Hemisphere, those who are descended from those who were forced into the Western Hemisphere during the Umusu Okesi, the great perversity, the enslavement era, but we have re-emerged, purified ourselves, embracing our ancestral culture, and restoring our sovereignty, our independence. Jida in the Akan language means to purify. Ojida means purification. It also means a celebration of purification. In ancient Kemet and Kanat, when you look at the Medutu, and we show this in our work, Jida means purification. It also means a celebration of purification. So this is not an Akan term. It is an ancient term from ancient Kanat and Kemet, which is a universal term for all Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut people, because that language of ancient Kanat and Kemet is the parent language from which the various languages on the continent were birthed and are directly descendant of. Jida meaning purification, Jida meaning a celebration of purification. Oman in Akan means a nation, also meaning referencing the people, the nation, the community. Mine in ancient Kemet means a nation, a city, a structure, a polity, and it also means mine as in Minu, meaning the West and the land of the West. When we talk about Jida Mine or Ojida Mine, we're talking about the Ojida nation, the purified nation, the pure nation, and the nation in the Oman, in Manu, in the West. The purified nation, those who, quote unquote, died and resurrected, like Awusi, like Ausar, which we're going to get into. So this is our terminology. Instead of talking about Africans in the diaspora, we talk about Odwiraman, the purified nation. All Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people are African black people who are descendants of those who were forced into the Western Hemisphere because of the Musuoketi, are part of Odwiraman, the purified nation, the pure nation. We are resurrecting. We are purifying ourselves and re-emerging. We are the ancestresses and ancestors who have returned through our blood circles to bring this purification in our blood circles today. So we dealt with that notion of identity in that broadcast, dealing with Odwiraman a couple of weeks ago, talking about our identity, talking about the 7 principal values of Amansesew, or nation building, restoration, in relationship to the 7 principal values of purification, Wabojida. So we talk about the 7 principal values of nation building, methods of food production and preservation. First principal value, we must be able to feed ourselves if we're going to have an independent, sovereign nation. Methods of curing disease. Number 2. Number 3, a military structure which we must establish to defend the nation that we build. Number 4, the institutionalization of values. We must have institutions to teach agriculture, training institutions to teach curing disease, training institutions to teach governance and to teach textile development and to teach engineering and to teach everything that we need, ritual institutions, cultural institutions, educational institutions, governmental institutions, all the institutions that we need, the institutionalization of our values so that every single person in the nation values the nation, recognizes the value of what the nation is, who we are as part of that nation, and therefore when you value who you are and value your nation, value your collective, you will defend your collective, and you will also seek to perpetuate that collective intergenerationally and transcarnationally. So the institutionalization of values is that 4th principal value of Amansesew, building institutions. The 5th principal value is the establishment of sound systems of governance and jurisprudence so that we can govern ourselves without simple disputes escalating into conflagrations that will tear down the nation from within and make us vulnerable to attack from the external enemy. So sound systems of governance and jurisprudence so that we can redress grievances and mitigate disputes in a harmonious fashion. The next principal value is the building of homes, of course, shelter homes on acquired land, independently, of course. And the 7th principal value is the manufacturing of clothing. Of course, that deals with textile development. So these are the 7 principal values of Amansesew nation building that we dealt with in that previous broadcast, and then we related them and showed the connection between those 7 principal values of purification, Wabojida. That first principal value dealing with our nature, our identity is Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people spiritually, meaning we have a Kra, and our Kradin, our soul name, the messenger of the Supreme Being, Nyame, the Great Mother and Great Father, to our spirit. Talking about our nature as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people with a soul, a divine consciousness, and Akra, or an Akrawa, a soul, a consciousness of divinity, a deity that dwells in the head region, assigned to us by the Supreme Being to dwell with us and guide us throughout the course of our lives. And spirituality is about aligning with that force in the head region. The second principal value dealing with the nature of not only our spiritual identity, but now the nature of our clan identity. You can mix blood, but you cannot mix the soul. We're talking about intergenerational and transcarnational identity. We are ancestresses and ancestors who have returned through our blood circle. Even though there was war in the ancestral blood circles and pollution and so forth, not only did the melanin dominant win the physiological battle, but we are the spirits who have incarnated into these wombs. We live in Afuraitkaitnut as part of certain groups in the past, and we are those same ancestresses and ancestors who have reincarnated. Even though the blood has been mixed, the soul has not been mixed. We are the same people from the same clan, and that is woven within our Kra, our soul, our divine consciousness, our Krawa. So that is that second principal value of purification, to understand that reality of our clan identity, blood identity, transcarnational identity. The third principal value, meaning all of the whites in their offspring are spirits of disorder. They incarnate the spirits of disorder without exception. Yet all of the spirits of disorder are not white. So you have all of the whites in their offspring, white Europeans, Asians, Hindus, Arabs, white Hispanics, pseudo-Native Americans, and so forth. They are spirits of disorder, our absolute enemy, without exception. They incarnate without a soul, a divine consciousness. They are spirit without soul. Like chickens with their head cut off, their spirits are running amok because they have no anchor in divine order, because they are spirits of disorder. But then you have some black people who begin to operate in the same fashion, begin to operate in a cancerous fashion. So they become spirits of disorder as well. So all of the whites in their offspring, without exception, are spirits of disorder. But some within our own community are spirits of disorder as well, and they are our enemies as well. So there's an external threat and an internal threat. Just like in your body, there's an external threat from toxins coming from the outside your immune system and lymphatic system deals with. There's also cancer cells that develop within that your immune system and lymphatic system, they deal with and neutralize that threat by destroying those cancer cells inside, from the inside, and destroying the bacteria and toxic cells coming in from the outside to maintain the integrity of your system. We talk about the nature of Owu, death, and its relationship to us and the way we operate and function. And that fourth principal value of purification, recognizing death, it wakes up those who sleep through life. We start to reassess our functioning in the world and make sure that we align our thoughts, intentions, and actions on a moment-to-moment basis with divine order. So we talk about that reality. That fifth principal value, talking about the nature of our divine function in creation. We come into the world to execute a specific function in creation. We're cells within the great divine body of the Supreme Being, and we have a function to execute, so we deal with that Nkrabia and that principle. And we also talk about of male and female, the foundational relationship in creation. That is the sixth principal value. That foundation relationship, Amen, the great mother and great father, functioning together as one unit, the divine balance of male and female, the foundational relationship in creation. And that is the law of ethical existence in the house of the Earth Mother that undergirds everything that we do, the balance, divine balance of male and female. And the final principle, Sankofa Jira, Subain, Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, it is the process of Sankofa that purifies our Subain, purifies our character. It's Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. So we show the juxtaposition and the relationship between the seven principal values of purification and the seven principal values of Amansesew and Nationbuilding in that first broadcast, so we can understand, number one, what is our collective identity as Odwiraman, the pure nation, those who have, quote unquote, died and resurrected and are emerging in a purified fashion, in a purified collective fashion. We understand our collective identity, Odwiraman folk, the people folk of Odwiraman, the purified nation as a group. Then we want to get to what is our relationship to one another as part of a collective. Once we identify that we are a collective, and what is the nature of that collective, what is the nature of our identity as Odwiraman, which we dealt with, that purified character. What is our obligation to one another as Odwiraman folk, as people part of this collective, this Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit collective. We have an interdependent relationship with other Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people all around the world. But we also have a relationship with one another as part of this collective, as a new group of people, a new collective within the Western Hemisphere. Our relationships and our experiences have forged a kind of relationship that we must acknowledge and honor. We've developed on a certain path, and now we are re-emerging from that development, that unique development, based on our experiences here, losing, quote-unquote, culture on the surface level and regaining that culture and purifying ourselves and moving forward in a harmonious fashion. So what is our obligation to one another as Odwiraman, as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people in the West, in the Aminti, in the Manu, in the West? So this is what we're dealing with tonight, building institutions and continuity. This is what we want to focus on. In Odwiraman, in this collective of which we are, the principal foundation when we're talking about building, institution building, and continuity, there's a philosophical foundation rooted in the forces in nature that deal with the establishment and perpetuation. We're talking about Adwo and Adwoa, also called Awusi and Esi and Akan, Ausar and Auset in ancient Kemet, Obatala and Oduduwa in the Yoruba tradition, or Orishanla and Iyanla in the Yoruba tradition, Agwu, Isi, and Idemilli in the Igbo tradition, Dangbe and Minona in Vodoun tradition, our great mother and great father with regard to the establishment of civilization, the perpetuation of civilization, and so forth. So we want to get into detail about how Adwo and Adwoa inform our approach to institution building and continuity, and our relationship as a collective to one another interdependently. This is what we want to deal with tonight. So when you go to the link that we placed in the chat room, it is an article, one of our articles on the Abosom Adwoa, but we also talk about Adwo, which is Ausar as well. So we want to get into that. We want to talk about this relationship and show how these forces in nature that we invoke ritually to assist us in institution building and the perpetuation of these institutions in a harmonious fashion, rooted in purification. We must first, as a collective, our first obligation as a collective is an individual obligation. Individually, we have the obligation to purify ourselves, to engage in jita, purification, thoughts, intentions, and action. As adults, every moment of every day, moment to moment, day to day, year to year, lifetime to ancestral life to lifetime. We must respect or review. The term respect and review, as we mentioned in our book, Fatah Sasatem, as well as Odwiraman, Afurakani, Manhood, and so forth, and other publications. To respect is to review. We must respect or review every thought, intention, and action, and harmonize each with divine order. We must ascribe the reality and the qualities of divine order to every thought, intention, and action. That's what adults do. That's what separates us from children. That's what separates us from the minds of, and the adwini, the minds of immature individuals. We are constantly assessing our thoughts, intentions, and actions and aligning them with divine order based on the standard of Omame and Aban, or Ma'al and Ma'at, as they're called in ancient Kemet. So this is what we're dealing with. So our first obligation as a collective in the West, Odwiraman, the purified nation in the West, is an individual obligation to engage the process of purification. Every thought, every intention, every action, physical, spiritual, emotional, mental, and so forth, consistently. That is our first obligation. And then once we move forward consistently in that fashion, then we connect with others in the Oman, in the nation, in the community, who have engaged that purificatory process as well. And then people who are engaged in the same kinds of processes, then we connect. We have a natural inclination, an innate propensity to come together and join and begin to work together in a harmonious fashion. And we deal with that in the section of Amansesew in our book, Odwiraman, Afurakani, Manhood, and so forth. So we don't have to go into too much detail on that level. But the fundamental principle is, first, you engage in self-purification on a consistent basis, not only your family members, but other individuals in the Oman, in the community, who are engaged in the same self-purificatory processes, so that we begin to purify ourselves on a collective. As we say, Ojida purification operationalizes Nanasom, operationalizes Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit ancestral religion, which is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. That is the essence of ancestral religion across the board. Through ritual, we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual, we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject in order to restore balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions. So ancestral religion, no matter what form it takes, Akan, Yoruba, Ebe, Vodoun, Hoodoo, Juju, Voodoo, and so forth, it is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance, the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion. We always say Odwira, purification, operationalizes Nanasom. Purification operationalizes the practice of ritually incorporating law and ritually restoring balance. But we also say Odwira forages our collective functioning as an Oman. Purification forages that collective function. When we start with self-purification, Odwira, self-Odwira, purification, when we engage that process, then we pull away the debris that separates us from the other members of the Oman. And then that natural propensity to function together in a harmonious fashion, just like your cells inside of the liver, they function together as liver cells. The cells within the heart, they function together as heart cells. The cells within the spleen and the bone marrow and so forth, they function together based on their design. The only thing that would keep them from functioning together in a harmonious fashion is if there was a disruption, if there was some cancerous activity, if there was some toxins and some debris separating and disrupting their transmission. Once that purification takes place, the natural propensity to function in a harmonious fashion rooted in what has been encoded within the cell manifests. And the same is true with us. Encoded within our Kra, our soul, the divine consciousness. Our Krawa is that natural propensity to execute our divine function in the world. We are cells within the body of the Supreme Being, so we are part of organs and organ systems. And as Odwiraman folk, the people folk of Odwiraman, the purified nation, we are a collective of cells as well. We have our individual functions, but those individual functions are also connected to an interdependent collective function as well as Odwiraman folk, as people of Odwiraman. And then, even as this collective, as Odwiraman, Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut in the West, we have a collective function that is interdependent with the collective function of Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut on the continent and other places in the world as well. But first we must forge our collective functioning. And we forge that collective functioning through Odwira, through purification. So that first obligation is for self-purification, Odwira. Then we move forward and connect with one another. And then we naturally begin to work in harmony with one another. And people say, why can't we work in harmony? Why can't we unify and so forth? The key is not unification per se. The key is not to focus on unification. The key is to adhere to law, ma'a and ma'at. When you adhere to law, ma'a and ma'at, and the only way you can adhere to law is through purification so that you can remove the debris, so you can see and experience and align yourself with ma'a and ma'at, the standard of divine order. Then once you adhere to law, then unification is instantaneous. When you remove the debris, unification is instantaneous. You don't seek the unity, you seek the law. And the law itself will place you in the unity immediately, instantaneously. If you have, as we often say, if you have a penny and a bowling ball and you hold them up at the same height above your head and let them go at the same time, they will hit the ground at the same time because the law renders them equal. It equalizes them. It unifies them. They are unified through the law. So as long as they adhere to the law, unification is instantaneous. So we adhere to law, ma'an, ma'at, through Odwira, through purification, self-purification, and that collective purification. Once we engage that process, then that natural propensity to align and function harmoniously and get our needs met on every level, social, political, economic, spiritual, cultural, military, and so forth, is a natural occurrence. So this is what we're dealing with. How do we get to that point? the divinities that govern this establishment and continuity or perpetuation of what has been established is Adwo and Adwoa, Ausar and Auset. So we want to deal with them because we invoke them on a daily basis in our various religious traditions. Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, religious traditions, real religious traditions. Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, ancestral religious traditions, of course, only. So we want to deal with the nature of them and how they're related to this notion of this collective identity, collective purification, and collective obligation to function in a harmonious fashion. So if you go to the article dealing with Adwoa, which of course also deals with Adwo, and we'll put the link back in the chat room right now. It can be found on our Adwo and Abosom page. We just put the link in the chat room. If you're not in the chat room, if you're on the phone, if you go to the odwira.com, Adwo and Abosom page, AKANFO BOSOM.html, Adwo and Abosom page. The Abosom, the forces in nature that govern the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies, which govern the 7-day week. We have an article on each one of these 11 Abosom. We also have videos on each one of these 11 Abosom that go into detail about the articles we published, as well as 11 broadcasts that we did on Blog Talk that go into further detail as well. So you can download all that information directly from the site. This is the piece on Nana Adwoa. We're not going to go through the whole piece. We just want to point out those portions that deal directly with the subject matter that we want to deal with. And of course, if you have a question or a comment on the phone line, hit the number 1. If you have a question or a comment in the chat room, you must log in as a user in order to interact in the chat room. If you don't have a username, you can sign up for one quickly in Blog Talk so you can interact. All right, so article dealing with Adwoa, you go past the first 4 pages, which is dealing with the introduction to the nature of the Adwo and Abosom, and then we get to, hold on one second. Just got to plug in right quick. Okay, so then we're going to get to, first we start dealing with the specific titles of Nana Adwoa and etymological root of the name, so you have a better understanding of who she is and why she functions in the manner that she does. She will show up and communicate with us. She's the major Abosom that she gave us our system of Adebisa, our Odwira, Adebisa, the major system of Adebisa or divination in Akwamu Nation in North America. Major divinity, of course, across all of our Afurakani and Afuraitkaitnut traditions. The first thing we show is the Adinkra symbol. The Akan people utilize Adinkra symbols to convey divine ancestral wisdom teaching. They're also used as matrices for energy, used on shrines and other in ritual capacities, similar to Vevas as they're used in Vodoun as well as the Medutu and ancient Kemet. The first Adinkra symbol is called Adwo. And the proverb of Ebe associated with that is when the king has good counselors, the reign will be peaceful. So we're talking about good counsel. When you have good counsel, then the reign, your functioning in the world will be a peaceful, harmonious reign without a great deal of chaos because you're receiving good counsel. Where does that counsel come from? Ultimately from Nyamewa, Nyame, the Supreme Being, through the agency of the Abosom that have been assigned to you pre-incarnation that you were born into the world with. And the Nananom Nsamafo, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors of your direct blood circle that were assigned to you by the Supreme Being as well pre-incarnation before you came into the world. So therefore, you, as we said previously, you come into the world with a culture. You're not dependent on anyone outside of your blood circle, whether it's here, Western Hemisphere, or on the continent. You're not dependent on anyone outside of your direct blood circle for your ancestral religion and culture. It is inborn, encoded within you pre-incarnation. So, Adwoa, major Abosom, we're talking about Ausar and Auset when they operate through the moon. When Ausar and Auset operate in connection with Ra and Ra'et, they're called Ausar Ra and Auset Ra'et, and they're connected with the sun, Awusi and Esi, and so forth. When they're connected with the moon in Akan culture, they're called Adwo and Adwoa. So we're talking about this lunar energy. Sometimes it's called the Abosom, sometimes it's called the Osorane. So, looking at the breakdown of some of the etymology of the name, Jo meaning to cool, to calm, to quiet, to be at peace and rest. Ajo also means to cry aloud, to lament, to wail. Ajo is also a title of respect. Anajo means nighttime. Jo means to cut into pieces. Jo also means root. And then we also have some other, Awo is another title of Nana Adwoa, meaning mother. It also means childbirth, labor, nativity. Wo means to engender, to beget, to generate, to procreate, to bring forth, to give birth to. That's why Awofo means parent. Wo means cool, cold, or chill. Adwoa means throne. Adria and Gwa also means throne, but also means to cut into pieces. So, the Abosom Adwoa is a spirit force who has a regulatory function in creation. She regulates the functions and operations of other Abosom. The Oria, the sun, sends its energy to Asase, earth, heating the planet while activating its atmosphere. The Bosom, the moon, receives and retains the energy of the sun, the Oria. The resultant energy of this process, including moonlight, in concert with the gravitational force of the Osorane of the moon, the increase in water levels, tides, and cools Asase, earth. Joda, day of Adwoa, as well as Ajo, is the day of the Osorane of the moon. The cooling effect of this celestial body on the atmosphere of Asase, regulating the temperature, and its cooling effect on the surface of Asase, increasing water levels, is what gives the major Abosom operating through the Bosom, up through the Osorane, the title Adwoa or Ajo, the root of which means to cool. So we're talking about the force of nature. This is why Joda, Monday, is the day da of Ajo and Adwoa, talking about the force of nature governing the Osorane, the moon. We talked about Awo meaning mother and so forth. We're going to get down to this. Adwoa as Awo, the great mother of conception, labor, and childbirth. It is the coolness of the womb that allows the baby to develop properly. It is the coolness, Wo, and Ojo, within the male reproductive organs which facilitates the readiness of the sperm cells to fertilize, Wo, to beget, fertilize the ovum. Without the requisite coolness, there is no fertilization and no embryogenesis. Excessive heat in the womb area disrupts the development of the fetus. Excessive heat kills mature sperm cells. Adwoa, as Awo, the mother, governs the uterus and vagina structure of the Afuraitkaitnit female and the complementary prostate and penis structure of the Afurakani male in order for conception to take place. Her cool, Ajo, or Wo energy allows us to beget, to engender, which is also Wo, in order that we may become parents, Awofo, and allows the woman to maintain the life of the ova and spermatozoa after fertilization, unification. We also talk about the uterus and vagina, as well as the prostate and penis structures have reflexive areas, which are connected to the various major organs and glands of the body. The reflexive areas of these structures, when stimulated through the process of procreative activity, regulate the functions and operations of the various organs and glands of the body. Just as the uterus, vagina, and prostate penis complexes are connected to and regulate the various organs and structures in your body through reflection, so it's Awo as the divine organ structure connected to and regulates functions and operations of the various divine organs, Abosom, which exist in as the divine body of Nyamewa Nyame. Awo functions as a divine birth house, birth canal in creation. In this capacity and through this reflection process, Adwoa maintains regulatory order in creation. Regulatory order amongst the planets, stars, suns, moons, oceans, winds, plant life, animal life, mineral life, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, human life, your organs and systems, spiritual potencies, forces, and so on. When the regulatory order is maintained within the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut population, it manifests as the maintenance of civilization. Those Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut who are guided by the energy and consciousness of Adwoa are therefore those who manifest the capacity to maintain civilization, a social order rooted in the divine order of nature. So when we talk about reflection, you've heard of foot reflexology, for example. So there are pressure points on the foot that are connected to the different organs in the body. So we're talking about acupressure. These are reflexive points. You press one area, the nerve ending there connects to the nerve ending in a different organ of the body, and therefore it stimulates a healing response in that organ of the body. It's like there are reflexive points on the soles of the feet and different parts of the hands, and acupressure points and acupuncture points and so forth, different parts of the body. The uterus and vagina structure, as well as the phallus structure of the male, the uterus and vagina structure of the female, have reflexive areas as well connected to the various organs and glands. Therefore, when we engage in procreative activity, reflection takes place. When you engage in procreative activity with your spouse in a harmonious fashion, sometimes you're bringing an ancestral spirit back into the world. Other times when you're not bringing an ancestral spirit back into the world, you're engaged in that process of reflection because those reflexive areas are stimulated, and therefore it affects a healing response if engaged in a harmonious fashion in the other organs and systems within the body, and aligns you with the Abosom that governs you as well on an energetic level. Just as Adwo Auset is the divine birth house or birth canal within your physical body, is the divine birth house or birth canal within the great divine body of the Supreme Being, the great Mother Amenet or Nyamewa, giving birth to the suns, moons, stars, planets, and so forth. And there are reflexive areas. So through that reflection, those pressure points, quote unquote, she regulates order in the body just like the reflexive point regulate order and reestablish healing within your physical body. Whenever you engage these pressure points and so forth, these areas of reflection, that's a regulatory function. So she can regulate order, reestablish order, and bring healing about in her functioning in the world as the great divine birth house within creation. When regulatory order is maintained within the Afurakani Afuraitkaitnut population, not just in the world, but within our population, it manifests as the maintenance of civilization. And civilization is a social order rooted in the divine order of nature. So that is that divine function of Adwoa, and of course Adwo, Ausar works hand in hand with that, and now we get into this portion. It is recognized that the pituitary gland, through hormonal secretion, stimulates the reproductive organs of the male and female. Ovulation and spermatogenesis, release of the ova and sperm cells for new returning life to take root, are a major result of this process. The interworking of the pituitary and the uterine contractions facilitate the release of oxytocin during labor. The pituitary also releases oxytocin for lactation. Awusi or Adwo, Ausar governs the pituitary, while Awo, Adwoa governs the uterus, vagina, prostate, penis, and thus function together in the body as Okunu and Oyere, husband and wife, to establish and maintain life. Adwoa also has a shared role in pituitary functions. Of course, the pituitary has those two major lobes, Adwoa and Adwo, Ausar, Auset and Ausar, and of course, Awusi, Ausar, Adwo has a shared role in the uterus, vagina, prostate, penis functions with regard to conception. So they deal with both. Ausar and Auset, or Adwo and Adwoa, are in the pituitary as well as the penis and prostate, uterus, vagina structures as well with regard to reflection. In the process of conception, the sperm cell penetrating the ovum initiates or establishes a new union life. The ovum contracting around, absorbing, and containing the sperm cell maintains the new union life. Fertilization unifies the male and female elements necessary for a new life to be established. Embryogenesis maintains the unified male and female elements for a new life to continue. Adwoa and Adwo, as Oyere, Ne Okunu, wife and husband, share in the regulatory function in creation, while Adwo or Ausar regulates by unifying the functions and operations of the various Abosom in nature, Adwoa regulates by maintaining the unity of functions and operations of various Abosom in nature. And again, when we talk about within our population, that unification and maintenance function of Adwo and Adwoa is the establishment and the continuity of civilization, of civilized society, and every institution that we need to establish. Institution building, establishment, and then institution continuity. So it is Adwo and Adwoa who governs that establishment of an institution, of a civilization, and institutions within that civilization and their perpetuity, their continuity. So this is our foundation, the philosophical foundation rooted in our cosmology, which is animated by these forces in nature who we invoke. And they are connected, they're shrines within the body, the pituitary gland, and the uterus, vagina, penis, prostate structure. So this is what we're dealing with. So we want to go down a little bit, and we want to get to another piece. We talked about them with regard to healing, and Odwira with regard to healing, but we want to go beyond that. The root jo and dro also means to cut into pieces. This is related to another definition of adai, which is the title of Adwo as well, to separate, talking about the separation of time and so forth, but also apportionment. And we're going to go beyond some of that information. It should be noted that the word apai in the Akan tradition, meaning prayers, means to split, to cut, to separate. All of these terms relate to the definition of ritual being a cutting into the spirit realm. But when Joe is talking about to cut into pieces, it's also talking about apportioning, separating pieces, establishing inheritance. And this is what we're going to get into. So when you look at, we say finally the term for seat, Adwoa, Adria, is directly related to Adwoa, talking about a seat or a throne. In Akan culture, the Odwira, the sun, often represents the Oheni, the king, while the Bosom, the moon, often represents the Ohima, the queen mother. Hence the Akan Ebe, a proverb, Ohima ye Bosom, the queen mother is the moon. Akan culture is matricircular, so-called matrilineal, thus the kingship is inherited and transmitted through the female blood circle. This is one of the reasons why the Adwoa or Adria, the throne of the Ohima, the queen mother, is senior to that of the Oheni, the king. Adwo or Awusi Ausar represents the establishment of civilization. Adwo, Auset, represents the maintenance of civilization. This speaks to matricircular succession, matrilineal succession, and the Ohimagwa, the Ohima, the queen mother's throne, being the foundation or root, and the term Jo also means root, of the nation's continuity. It is the seat of power. Family inheritance, including land rights, are passed through the female blood circle. The Akan say all power emanates from the land. The land rights are passed through the seat of power, which is the female Adria, the seat, dealing with the matrilineal clans, the Abusiako, and so forth. Adwoa, the great mother Adwoa, is the Adria, the throne. Adwoa is also Ojo, meaning root, that which has the capacity to ground, just as the ovum grounds the sperm cell in the process of fertilization. Then we show a picture of a throne, one of the Gua. So Jo means cool. It also means root. It also means to apportion, to cut into pieces, to separate. We're talking about matricircular inheritance, power, the seat of authority, of executive authority. And we go into some definitions there, but we also talk about Adria. The female inheritance is transmitted through the Adria, through the throne. The wealth is therefore separated or apportioned, divided up, cut up into pieces. This is why Jo also means to cut up into pieces through the matricirculars, the matrilineage. The matricircular family and clan are called Abusia and Abusia Quo, respectively, in Akan culture. Akan identity is based on matricircular affiliation. And we talk about the 7 great Abusia Quo, or Musia Quo, the great, headed by 7 great ancestresses. All Akan people can trace their blood circle back to one of these great mothers, and they're governed by 7 great female divinities. We talk about Adwoa as an Abosom operating through the Osorane, the moon. She has a regulatory function in creation, just like Adwo Ausar. She provides the coolness necessary for fertilization and embryogenesis and is thus the great mother of childbirth and labor in the Afuraitkaitnut body, as well as being the divine birth house, birth canal of creation. She governs the ritual state and is co-ruler with Adwo Ausar. In the spirit realm, she maintains civilization, regulatory order. She heals through the release of water and sound. She holds the keys to the transmission of inheritance and thus authority in families and in society. Ausar Auset is the seat, throne, foundation, root of inherited executive authority. So you'll see that the throne is on the head of Auset, identifying her with regards in relationship to the other forces in nature, in ancient Kemet. You'll see her name is spelled with the throne and then the symbol for the T sound, the Et sound, the feminizing determinant. You'll see Ausar is also spelled with the throne, but then you see the eyes up under the throne or in front of the throne. She wears the throne on her head because it's the seat of executive authority. The root, Jo, comes from Adwo or Adwoa, that throne, that root, that foundation, that capacity to separate or apportion or divide the inheritance amongst the matriclan and so forth that came forth from her womb and so forth. This is all dealing with Adwoa, the great mother. So then we go into some detail about her manifestation in ancient Kemet and the symbolism in ancient Kemet. And we talk about Ausar as well and the symbolism of the throne and these various things. We're talking about executive authority wielded by these two. In the Akan tradition, when you have twins amongst some Akan, the first twin is the youngest twin, and he goes out and he scans the terrain, or she scans the terrain to open the way for the elder, the second twin, to come forward. The same is true in the Yoruba tradition. The first twin is born as the younger. The first one that comes out the womb is the younger. They scan the area, they survey the area, and then they open the way and clear the way for the elder to come forward. This is why when you see the children of Geb and Nut, male earth divinity, and Nut, the sky mother divinity, and Geb and Nut give birth to two sets of twins, Ausar, Auset, Set, and Nebuchadnezzar. Ausar is the firstborn, but he's the younger. He opens the way for Auset, the second twin, to come forward. And that's why the throne on the head of Auset is the throne of the Ohimagwa, of the Ohima, the queen mother, which is the throne that is senior to the throne of the Ohini, the king. Same process. And of course, Nebuchadnezzar comes after Set. The throne of the second-born twin is the elder, or the elder's throne. So we deal with that in that next section. And then we also show some of the symbolism and why that, the pregnant woman in the side view is the same as the high-back throne in ancient Kemet, because a woman who's pregnant is the throne upon which the nation is birthed and so forth. And we go into some detail about that. And then we start to show some connections between the term Ojo and Ochoat in ancient Kemet, talking about the eye, talking about the moon, the left eye of Ra. The Ochoat comes from, is the same terminology as Ojo and Adwo and Adwoa and so forth in Akan. We say Ochoat in ancient Kemet, male and female, talking about that left eye of Ra, which is the moon, just like the right eye of Ra is the sun. So we're utilizing the same terminology. Ochoat, the moon, becomes Odwira and Adwoa and Adwo in Akan, dealing with the Abosom, Ausar and Auset, when they operate through the moon. So we want to get into some cosmology with regard to Ausar and Auset, and then we're going to bring that together to show this cosmology, which actually show the philosophical foundation, the cosmological foundation of how Ausar and Auset deal with this whole nation of purification, individually, collectively, and then also, and we're pulling up this document right now, collectively, with regard to our obligations to one another to begin to support institution building and its continuity. So we're going to look at the Kukulutun, the ancestral jurisdiction, and when you can go to the Nhoma page or the Kukulutun page on our website. This is one of our 16 books. Of course, all 16 of our books are free downloads. In the ebook version, we also sell the softcover version. We'll get into that later tonight. And when you download the Kuku Tun Tun, the ebook version, we're going to go to page. We're just going to go through a couple of sections here talking about Ausar and Auset, Adwo and Adwoa. And just give me 1 second. Find out which page that is. Page number 46. All right. And in this particular section, we're talking about the fictional cartoon character who never existed, Jesus, Yeshua ben Pendera, and so forth, as well as later in the text, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik. They are all fictional characters. Of course, we also address Muhammad, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael. All of these are fictional characters as well. In this specific section, we're talking about Ausar, Auset, and Heru, and then we get into the fictional cartoon character Jesus, but we want to talk about them with regard to their function. So if you look on page 46, Ausar, or Adwo, is a god in creation whose spirit operates through the star system of Sa, called Orion, through the moon, and through the black soil substance of Earth. In your body, Ausar's energy operates through your pituitary gland. Ausar operates as the masculine aspect of your soul, your ka. Ausar is thus the force dwelling within your spirit that is always rooted in what is in harmony with divine order. Ausar is a god whose spirit has the ability to unify the functions or operations of the various forces in nature. The god Ausar was thus ordered by the Great Spirit to operate on earth and teach Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut by example, how to live in harmony with divine law. So therefore, Ra and Ra direct these forces in nature to possess, through ritual possession, spirit possession. We play songs, play drums, dance, and sing and so forth, and people get possessed by the forces in nature when Ausar and Auset first begin to possess our people, just like they possess our people now through ritual dance and ritual song, and communicate through spirit possession. Ra and Ra direct them to communicate with our people and show us divine order. What is in harmony with order? What is not in harmony with order? What herbs to pick to heal? What time of the day? What time of the night? What time of the year? And so forth. All these different things. Auset is a goddess in creation whose spirit operates through the star system Sapatit, called Sirius, the moon, and through the river waters of earth. This is Adwoa. In your body, Auset, so Adwoa's energy operates through the vagina and uterus structure in the female and the penis and prostrate gland of the male. Auset operates as the feminine aspect of your soul, your kaet. Auset is thus the force dwelling within your spirit that makes you receptive to what is in harmony with divine order. Auset is a goddess whose spirit has the ability to maintain the unity of functions and operations of the forces in nature. The goddess Auset was thus ordered by the Great Spirit to operate on earth, the Great Spirit being Ra and Ra, to teach Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut by example, how to maintain their living in harmony with divine law. And of course, when we talk about Ausar establishing civilizations and Auset maintaining civilizations, we know about the death and resurrection of Ausar when Ausar is killed, and Auset maintains the unity of function, seeks out his body, connects with Anpu and connects with the other Abosom, reconstitutes Ausar, mummifies the body and so forth, becomes impregnated by the spirit of Ausar. First, that body being united or remembered, so to speak, that is unification, maintaining the unity of functions and operations of the forces in nature. Yes, society was established. She wants to maintain the union that they had, pulling those pieces back together, maintaining the unity of functions and operations, maintaining the lineage, the blood circle. So she unifies him so she can reconnect with them, so she can give birth to Heru, so they can maintain the civilization and perpetuate the civilization, the continuity of the civilization, the continuity of the rulership of the civilization and so forth, so that Heru can be born and reestablish the society and social order of his mother and father and so forth by defeating Set. So that's maintenance of that function. Now let's go up. We're going to go back to the Adwoa article, and we want to look at some of the text with regard to Adwoa from ancient Kemet, just to bring that point home. So you can see this, they're functioning together in this regard. All right, so from the stele of Amenmeth, Auset served as his protector, talking about Ausar drove off the enemy, put a stop to the misdeed, meaning the attack on Ausar, removed the enemy by power of her incantation, golden tongue. Her speech cannot fail, talking about that divine speech, her incantation, skilled in command, mighty Auset, who rescued her brother Ausar. This is Adwoa rescuing her brother Adwo. She searched for him, would not give in to her weariness, wandered about this land lamenting. Remember, Jo means to lament or cry as well. Would not take rest until she had found him. She made him shade with her feathers, created breath with her wings, jubilated, joined her brother, raised the inertness of the weary one. She received his seed, produced an heir, brought up the child in solitude. The place could not be known. Introduced him with his arm grown sturdy into the court of Geb, the earth divinity, the father, the hereditary chief of the land. The great group of goddesses and gods was jubilant. Welcome, son of Ausar, Heru, firm-hearted, justified, son of Auset, heir of Ausar. The council of Ma'at assembled for him. And then after that took place, of course, he waged war along with Heru Behudet to defeat Set and followers and reestablish that social order rooted in divine order. So we talk about first Ausar and Auset establishing civilization under the direction of the creator and creatress Ra and Ra'et. Adwo and Adwoa, Ausar and Auset, under the direction of Inyonkopon and Inyonkonton, Ra and Ra'et, to establish civilization within our population. By example, spirit possession, spirit communication, Akom and Nkom, they come into the population, into the bodies of our people, and directly communicate with our people to establish and show us how to establish a social order and to maintain a social order. Just as that took place in the past, that takes place today. And we as Odwiraman, the purified nation, we receive and invoke Adwo and Adwoa, Ausar and Auset, and they take up residence and possess and communicate through Akom and Nkom, spirit possession, spirit communication, so that they can show us by example directly in the community amongst the population how to purify ourselves individually, purify ourselves collectively, and begin to work together in a harmonious fashion and fulfill that obligation we have to work as a collective that is encoded within our krawa, our soul, our divine consciousness. This is their role. And then when we make mistakes, when we become disjointed and become dismembered and become discordant and so forth, we follow the example, the direction of Adwoa, who searched tirelessly for our brother Adwo to reunify, to reconnect, to reestablish order, and to bring forth that which will perpetuate the nation, bring forth that continuity of the nation. So we invoke them once again. We invoke them ritually, through libation, through ritual prayer, ritual song, ritual dance, and so forth, with regard to this purificatory piece, so that we can establish order in every aspect of our lives, and as an Oman, as a nation, as a collective. Now, we want to give an example of what we're dealing with. And of course, again, if you have any questions or comments, just hit the number 1 on the phone line. If you're in the chat room, you can interact in the chat room by logging in as a user. Before we go forward with this next example, we want to check the chat room to make sure we don't have any questions or comments. All right. One of the examples we utilize, and we're going to put this link in the chat room right now. This philosophy is what undergirds our approach to Amansesew nation building. We talked about the 7 principal values of nation building. We talked about the principal values of purification, rooted in the Abosom that govern the 7 days of the week, that natural cycle, movements of the planets, sun, moon, and different planets that govern all natural cycles on Earth, and the chronobiological cycle within our body called the circumception cycle, or the about 7-day cycle and so forth. The same movement of the sun, moon, and planets, their juxtaposition and so forth in regard to Earth, affecting those cycles physically and biologically and spiritually, the same forces in nature give their energy to these 7 principal values of Amansesew, nation building, restoration, and purification. So we talked about that. And when we put these things into practice, this is what undergirds our movement. This is what undergirds our philosophy. So when we talk about establishing institutions and the continuity of institutions, for example, when we have the Okom economic development model, it's based on that foundation. So when we begin to bring, and when you look on the Okom economic development page, and we have a list of businesses that we're targeting, 1 business per week for 52 weeks, and we have targeted 17 businesses so far. Starve the beast and feed the pride. We reallocate funds, money that we would have spent with the whites and their offspring in their businesses. Starve that white beast and feed the pride. Get that money, donate to the business of the week, the organization or institution of the week, or order their products and services. Take that $10 or $15 you would have spent at the white business and reallocate it to the business of the week. And when we all do that, 1,000 people, of course, $10,000 or $15,000 is flooded into the coffers of the black business organization or institution of the week, as opposed to going to one of the whites and their offspring. This is when we talked about that purificatory process. First, we engage in wabu or Odwira self-purification. And then once we engage in self-purification, then the debris is clear from our eyes, and then we see we have a collective responsibility. So we're naturally inclined towards seeking ways to assist others in the community. And this is why we established the Okom economic development model. And this is why we have our approach to servicing and seeking to fund and plow in some resources at an optimal level for communities, servicing 1 business organization or institution per week for 52 weeks. This is part of a natural process. Once you engage in Odwira, you have that natural propensity to be engaging other people in the Oman, in the community, on a harmonious, collective fashion. When we talk about our institution, Akongwaswea, that same principle is at work. So when you look at our page, you go to the Akongwaswea page, and we just put the link in the chat room. Our institution, Akongwaswea, which we founded as an institution in 13,001, Gregorian calendar through 2001, is our central institution of learning within Akwamu and Amanukai the Akwamu Nation in North America. So all of the books that we have published, all of the classes that we teach, all of the workshops that we've given, including the Akumasa that we developed and we provide free to the community, Akumasa, dealing with substance abuse, abstinence, and our ritual method rooted in the ancestral religion to overcome addiction to alcohol and marijuana and cigarettes and cigars and other drugs and so forth, overcoming domestic violence, the negative effects of domestic violence, and the discarnate wayward spirits that affect people negatively and cause them to keep maintaining that negative cycle. They can break free from that. We have a ritual method dealing with that as well. Trauma recovery alignment, a ritual method to overcome intergenerational suffering, transcarnational suffering, so that people can move forward in a harmonious fashion. Odwiraman Afurakani Manhood, which is our workshop based on our book, Odwiraman Afurakani Manhood, for young as well as older males and so forth. That workshop, the Sankopa Juma workshop, rooted in our publication, Afura Whole Life Interventions, as well as in Chim, the individual treatment plans in the cultural spiritual domain. So we train social workers, human service agents, psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers, case managers, and so forth, on how to incorporate culture into their therapeutic interventions with their clients so that they can service the whole individual, the whole Afurakani individual, if you're not addressing them spiritually and physically from the center of culture, a way of life that's harmonious, that's intrinsic, that's inborn, that you help them self-discover so they can recognize that the motivations that they've been having and that sometimes they attune to is really something that's inborn and innate, that was given to them by the Supreme Being, their innate culture, their ancestral culture, that they have drawn upon in times of crisis, that was allowed them to overcome obstacles, and they need to recognize and contextualize that properly so they can utilize that same skill to cover every aspect of their lives. We have that training. We have the Afura whole life intervention therapeutic model, showing these human services agents how to incorporate these principles and this information into their interventions with their clients. So even people who think that they're not interested in anything cultural or African or whatever it is, whether you're dealing with youth who are therapeutic foster care youth, or dealing with people who have mental illnesses, or people who are just in the community who need services and so forth, we have established a means by which and a method by which, an effective method that we've utilized for a number of years, training people in that method when we're dealing with physical soundness, spiritual soundness from the center of culture, so you can deal with the whole life of the individual. And we published the Nkwamuwa Whole Life Journal as a manual to engage that process, that therapeutic process. So those trainings, as well as all of our 16 books and 60 articles and broadcasts and so forth, all of these things are born of our institution. We started in Chicago in 2001 as an institution. And then just 6 years ago, we moved to Washington, D.C. So, of course, we've continued Akongwasuya here as well. So there's a reason why we operate in the fashion that we operate. Is based on these principles of purification. Ahujira, purifying ourselves and then seeking to connect with others in the Oman, the community, in that collective purificatory function. So when we release these 16 books and all the books that are coming afterwards, the ebook versions of our publications are all free download. Why do we release the ebook versions for free? We have the soft cover versions as well. We do print those in-house and in color on our own printers. We do sell the soft cover versions because we do have to cover the price for the ink and printing and everything else. If we were millionaires, we would give away the soft cover versions of the books for free as well. And at this time, we're not able to do that. However, we can give away the ebook versions, which are the entire book. They're just in ebook format. Those are available for free for any Afuraitkaitnut person anywhere around the world, whether they have a computer, a cell phone, a smartphone, or whatever. They can access this information. That approach is born of the Ahujira process, the purification process. We engage in self-purification and attune to Adwo, attune to Adwoa. They direct us in how to operate. Now, everybody's not going to operate in the exact same fashion. Everybody has their own method and their own function in the world, and you just follow what your own cry, your soul, your divine consciousness directs you to do, and you will always be in harmony with order. Once again, as we said earlier, the key is aligning with the law. And once you attune to law, then you're on the right path. Everything else becomes unified instantaneously when we all adhere to law. So whatever your approach to engaging the community, as long as it's rooted in what your Okra is directing you to do, your Okra is directing you to do, then you're on the right track. The reason we move in this fashion is because of the purification process, Ahujira, directed by Adwo and Adwoa to move in this fashion. We need to get this most important information out to all of our people. And if there's a means by which all of our people have access to these publications, information critical, such as proving conclusively that Jesus never existed of any race whatsoever or in any form, Yeshua never existed, Isa Yeshua ben Pandera of the Talmud also never existed, not black, not white, Muhammad never existed, the deity Mu-Hotmet, the waters Mu of Hotmet, the northern Nile, is where they stole the character Muhammad from and manufactured this cartoon character off of the spirit Mu-Hotmet that animates the northern Nile every moment of every day. They made that spirit into a white Arab walking around in Arabia and so forth. This is information. Solomon, Sheba, and Menelik being a corruption of Ausar and Auset and Heru, operating through the star system Sa, Orion, and supposite theories and so forth. We go through that whole cosmology. We prove that Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael never existed, Buddha never existed, Brahman and so forth. All these various things we go into detail about. We talk about Amen and Amenet, and Ra and Ra'ed, and Ka and Ka'et, and the deity Ma'al as well as Ma'at, divine balance of male and female, who these divinities are. The nature of the Abosom, the forces of nature and their relationship to us. The nature of the ancestors and ancestors and their relationship to us. The nature of our culture being inborn and innate and encoded within us by the Supreme Being, so that when we incarnate into the world, we are born with a culture that we can access through our own trawa. So therefore, we are not dependent anyone outside of our blood circles to give us our culture. That shields us from criminals and charlatans and idiots who would seek to try to control us and our spirituality and our practice of ancestral religion. We prove conclusively and cosmologically the real deal. So we can't keep this information and hold it ransom because someone didn't give us $9 or $10. Therefore, we can't hit the enter key and post this information on the website, which easily we could do. So it would be unconscionable to do otherwise. So therefore, because we go through this Ahojira process, we're naturally moved to operate in this fashion, and then connect with other individuals who have engaged the Ahojira process as well. They begin to purify themselves and then begin to recognize also our collective effort, our collective obligation to one another. So this is why we move forward, first we had the broadcast on Ustream, and then of course we moved to Blog Talk Radio so that we can get this information out, answer questions, detailed questions, nuanced aspects of cosmology and culture and so forth, so that people can not only learn about the culture, but begin to incorporate these things into their lives. Begin to establish your own Nsama Nkombre, ancestral tribe. And Kradim Bosom Kombre is dealing with the Abosom that governs your Kayat, your soul, your divine consciousness. So you can begin to engage consciously the forces in nature that are assigned to you by the Supreme Being. So you can realign yourself with order. So you can overcome vice and overcome self-destructive behaviors and overcome conditioning and reestablish order within your life individually, within your family, and then connect with other individuals who are on the same path as well. And once we engage these processes, then we're naturally inclined to engage the Amansesew or nation-building process. So all of this kind of movement is based on these philosophical foundations, this cosmology, invoking Adwo, invoking Adwo, and so forth. And this is what moves us in the direction that we move. Okay, I thought I saw something in the chat room. Just want to make sure. And again, if you have any questions or comments on the phone line, hit the number 1. If you have any questions in the chat room, of course, you must log in. And I see that Medase for posting, thank you, Medase for posting that in the chat room. Brother was just posting some of the links to the information that I was just talking about. So he just posted the link to the substance abuse abstinence in the Afuraitkaitnut community. That link on our website, Yakuma Trauma Recovery Alignment, also domestic abuse neutralization, the Patasa, which is our curriculum for youth as well as adults. Of course, we have the Odwira Afurakani Manhood, and then of course we have our 16 books, publications, and so forth. So he posted some of that information. So made I say for that. Okay, there's a call on the phone line. Michio on the phone line, number 5251. You had a question or a comment?
Yes, Brother Quasi. What's up? I had a question on, since this whole gay marriage thing has been federalized across all 50 states, there's a lot of so-called people in the conscious community promoting this myth about gay shamans. There's a Facebook page called Real African History, Passing Down Our True Past to Our Posterity, by somebody named Molly Doma Patrice Some. And she's saying that he's saying that he's from the Dogon tribe and he's a shaman. And he was saying that gender has no basis, and Dogon culture is based off energy, and a male can vibrate at the female energy and vice versa. And he's saying when like the spirits possess, like a male deity can possess a woman, and a female deity can possess a male. So I wanted to get your because I already know you did the issue on homosexuality was never accepted in Kemet, but do you have any information on like modern day traditional tribes, exposing this myth that somehow gays or gatekeepers or something inside the tribal culture?
Okay, yes, I'll say for that. So we did recently we did a broadcast, Cocoa Ball, eradicating dissexuality, homosexuality through ancestral religion. We went into some detail about that. Malidoma Patrice Some, known around the world as an absolute fraud. People in the community know who he is. He's funded by white faggot homosexual groups in America. This is why he was able to go around and publish a bunch of books. He's engaged in that dissexuality himself. He's from the Dagara people of Burkina Faso. The Dagara elders and eldresses in Burkina Faso, the actual elders do not support him at all. He's a straight-up fraud. So he's been lying to people for years, funded by white homosexual groups in America. That's why when his books first came out of Water and the Spirit and everything else, he was everywhere. He was all over, not just in black bookstores, white bookstores, going to little New Age bookstores, all in the media and everything else, because he's one of these frauds. And people in the culture know that, and even people on the continent, they're disgusted by the lies that he's been teaching. So there's no such thing as faggots and dykes being gatekeepers. That's pure idiocy. That's an absolute lie. And they know it's a lie. That's why they promote it. Some of our people get caught up, number one, because, they see some publications, but first and foremost, the reason why they get caught up is because of the conditioned belief, which is false, that we must look outside of our ancestral blood circle, our direct blood ancestresses and ancestors, for direction on ancestral culture. As soon as we hear about dissexuality, homosexuality, we know it's insane, we know it's perverse, we know it's deviant, we know the forces in nature, the supreme being, the ancestresses and ancestors, and our own Krawa absolutely hate dissexuality. It's never been accepted and never will be. It's no different than bestiality. It's no different than child molestation. It's all the same perversity. So your Kra, which is a deity, the Ori Inu, the Selido, the divinity dwelling in the head region, the Ka, the Kaet, tells you immediately it's perverse, it's insane, and it is not accepted on any level. Your Nananoman Samaf will tell you that immediately. The Abosom that you were born into the world with, the Orisha that you were born into the world with, forces of divine order, embodiments of divine order, tell you immediately it's insane. But because we've been conditioned by not only the whites and their offspring, but criminals on the continent who would seek to control and extort us for money and so forth, a certain population of them, we've been conditioned to believe that we're just ignorant, empty vessels over here in the Western Hemisphere, and we lost all of our culture, and we have no knowledge of anything, and we just have to go begging for tradition because we're just ignorant niggas in America, and we couldn't possibly know anything about spirituality. As soon as somebody shows up who speaks the language that comes from the continent and says, well, faggots are gatekeepers, we're like, oh, well, he must know what he's doing. We must have to follow along with him. We have to suppress what the divinity that actually dwells in our head region guides us to. But once we break out of that foolish conditioning, we recognize a number of things. Number one, our Nsamafo has been communicating with us all along. The Abosom has been communicating with us all along. They've been possessing our people since enslavement. And in fact, it was them who empowered us to overthrow the slave masters and free ourselves from enslavement. It is those Abosom guiding our people who are responsible, and the people who listen to them and follow that direction, they're the ones who are responsible for ending slavery. We're indebted to them for holding on to the tradition so that we wouldn't be physically enslaved. And now it's our turn to finish the job. But once we open our eyes and engage in Ahojira, self-purification, then we can see clearly, and we reject these idiots outright, and we don't even entertain them. We don't dialogue with them. We don't debate. We shut them down, crush them, and expose them for the frauds that they are. So anybody on the continent or anywhere else on earth who's talking about this sexuality has anything to do with spirituality is an absolute criminal, lying fraud. And we shut them down instantly and perpetually.
Right. Because thank you for that. Because I found it's like not too much written literature when you're dealing with ancestral culture, and I only found one anti-homosexual verse in one of the Ifa Odus that said it was saying something about like a man has. It's similar to the one of the enunciations of my it was saying something along those lines, and it's in the Ifa Odu. But it's not too much information, like written information, on ancestral religion. So you got these people, you know, they're interpreting it, and since it's like for example, nobody can say in the Bible that Christianity, you know, even though it's a fake book, but it condemns homosexuality in the Bible because that book is written. Nobody can say, well, because it's not an oral tradition, like it's or hasn't been burnt. Like it's a book that everybody can reference. But when you're dealing with ancestral religion, it's not too much written material on it. So you got these people, you know, making up stuff, and so that's what I've been trying to do. I've been trying to find, you know, more written information on it. Just because there's a lot of people just in general on Facebook spreading misinformation about homosexuality being a part of African traditional culture or whatever. But I appreciate that answer.
Okay. And may I say we appreciate the call.
All right.
Yes, and on one hand, that's one of the reasons why, you know, we're publishing. We published these 16 books, and we have more coming out as well to correct the record. You know, every publication, every article, every publication, every broadcast is a strike against the enemy. That's how we move. So everything we're doing, we're talking about reestablishing order. We're dealing with purification. Purification, once again, operationalizes NANASOM. Purification also forges this collective functioning in a harmonious fashion. As Odwiraman as a purified nation in the West, and just purification with regard to Afuraitkaini people in general. So on one hand, it's one of the reasons we publish, one of the reasons we release the ebook versions of all of our books, as well as the 60-plus articles for free, and of course all of the broadcasts as well, so that as many of our people can get this information. And that will also begin to empower and, you know, motivate others to do the same thing. Began to form these NANASOM Feku, ancestral religion study groups in different parts of the country, and you can establish a NANASOM Feku ancestral religion study group with one or more people, whether you're in person or online. Just go to our Feku page. We have a recommended curriculum. You don't have to be some expert at all. You're all learning together. That's why there's a curriculum, and you can begin that process immediately, in person, online, or a combination thereof. And more people are beginning to engage the practice. And once people begin to engage the practice and reincorporate their ancestrally inherited religious practice, then nobody can run that game. The oral traditions are strong enough to crush all of this nonsense. It's just that most of our people are not engaged in the practice of the culture, and the whites and offspring have flooded the internet and flooded, you know, these publications with misinformation, and our people have not, you know, begun to really, you know, fully engage the culture. But it has already begun on a smaller scale, and it's increasing very rapidly. But initially, back in the 90s and so-called 2000s and so forth, whites and offspring started publishing all these books on the Orisha and Vodoun and all this other stuff, trying to blanket the entire area and blanket the airwaves and blanket the internet with misinformation. So every time you type in Orisha, the first thing you see is a white person who's a faggot, and they're representing the Orisha tradition, which, of course, the Orisha have never possessed a cracker and never will. The Abosom have never possessed a cracker and never will. The Vodoun have never possessed a cracker and never will. And anybody who says differently is either lying deliberately because they're criminal or they're lying out of ignorance. But either way, they're lying. And you have direct experience because these Abosom are directly connected to you. So you're not dependent on some fool who's either a liar or a criminal telling you something about the Orisha, the Abosom. You can deal with them directly in your own home because the Abosom are assigned to you before you even come into the world. So you're dependent on no one. All of this control from these idiots, all of that is over. So, again, this is why we get this information out. This is the reason we put this information out, to get it to our people on a wide scale. And then people begin to listen to their own Nsamanfo, begin to move according to the function that they have been designed to execute. Some individuals will be naturally inclined to begin to publish as well, broadcast, put this information out in various ways. Some people are artists, they'll do it in that fashion. Some people are, speakers, they'll do it in that fashion. Some people are writers, some people are poets, some people are engineers. No matter what field of endeavor you're naturally inclined toward, there's a way to incorporate ancestral religious culture from an authentic foundation and share that information with those in your immediate circle, your family, as well as those you're in connection with. Once you purify yourself and engage in that purification on a consistent basis, so when you make mistakes, of course, we have ritual practices to realign ourselves with order. We're talking about normal mistakes, not some insane, engage in child molestation or rape or something like that. You deserve to be killed. But we're talking about, regular mistakes, regular people mistakes. You engage in, activity, you're growing, developing, maturing, and so forth. You make mistakes along the way, honest mistakes. Then you have ritual practices, ancestral religion to restore order, incorporate law, and restore balance to your life. Go through that process, and you begin to realign and purify yourself and maintain that purity, that Odwira through ritual practices. Then you're naturally inclined towards, after the debris is cleared from your spiritual sight, you're naturally inclined towards operating in a harmonious fashion, getting this information out to people who you're connected with in a harmonious fashion. You naturally feel that collective will, that collective obligation to support one another. You support black businesses, you support endeavors, anything that is furthering the purification of our people. You'll be naturally inclined to support. So this is what we're dealing with. Okay, we have another call on the phone line. Number 4719, Michiawo, you had a question or a comment?
What's up? I had a question and like a comment as well. I think I'm gonna start with my question, and then go into my comment. Question is, I'm trying to weave it all together into one, because I see we're dealing with a lot of our people. I've come to discover one of the main obstacles is our sick attachment with Europeans, right? With Achiwari for, and
right,
and hate, that word hate, right? I'm Gullah Geechee, born and raised in Charleston, so I'm real. I'm close to the situation that's going on in South Carolina, and people respond to it, and one of the answers is, the word hate is being thrown around a whole lot, right? And I know you get clarification of what the word hate really means, right? And so my question is, we deal with our family members, number one, those who close to us. Our mothers, sisters, brothers, nieces and nephews, etc. And we're dealing with them, and we're speaking to them about, our traditional ways and how we are to respond, to the cracker, and trying to articulate, try to explain to them, what hate really is, and the lack of receptivity that you would get because people have, rather people think that hate is this. You think what I'm saying? And, so I guess I hope I'm not sounding, incomprehensive, you know what I mean? I'm sounding confused. But I just want you to, kind of give me some clarification on how do we communicate to our those who are close to us, you know what I mean, when we're dealing with the word hate and how we are to deal with it and socialize with crackers. You feel me?
Okay. So, so the question is dealing with the notion of hate because our people have an unnatural response. Even just hearing the word hate or even thinking about it, they get nervous and shaky and everything else because the whites in our spring have taught us that hate is wrong, hate is evil, hate is of the devil, all this other nonsense. It's not spiritual. These pseudo-spiritualists, even pseudo-Kemetic people and pseudo-other spiritualists talk about hate is wrong and it represents a low vibration of energy and it'll tear you down and burn you up. All that's idiotic. So the way to begin to explain that, you can always relate things to what people know for 100% certain. So you can always explain it with regard to the body. But first we always say, first of all, in our book, for example, Maranechi, divine law, love, and divine hate, we actually trace etymological origin of the word hate. The whites in our spring, if you look in their dictionaries, their etymological dictionaries, the furthest they go is the Proto-Indo-European term ket, meaning to break or destroy or destruction. And they'll say it goes back a few thousand years from the Proto-Indo-European language phylum. That's the earliest root that they have for the term hate, meaning hate, ket, meaning to break or destroy, destruction, and ket, meaning becoming ket and hate and so forth. But of course, it doesn't go back to Proto-Indo-European root. We show the actual term with the exact same meaning going back to ancient Kemet and show it in the hieroglyphs in the Medusa, ket, and chet, meaning to hate, to break, destroy, and also showing the symbol of a man with a stick, breaking, destroying, driving back, driving away, and so forth. So we not only show the term, it's the same term, ket, meaning to break or destroy, destruction, and so forth, but it's also the image of a man actually doing it. Because we actually have, why does the sound ket equal up to breaking or destroying? We actually show the image of the person doing the breaking and destroying, showing that we were the first ones to come up with the term. But even moreover, it's also a title of the male and female forces of divine hate, or ket, which is Heru Bekudet and Sechima Segmet. Just like they're male and female forces of divine law, which is Ma'al and Ma'at. There's the male and female forces of divine hate, which is Heru Bekudet and Sechima, called Benan, Abenat, and Akan. So these are deities that govern this divine force, the male and female force of divine hate. So that's a reality, which most of our people have never heard of because the whites and offspring have never brought that information forward, and they can investigate that. But even further, when you talk about destruction or repulsion or driving back or driving away and so forth, every single individual, if you say your immune system is one of the most important systems, of course, in your body, because if you didn't have that, it doesn't matter that the other major systems in the body are well defined and structured and very complex. If your immune system is not operant, then everything is going to fall apart very rapidly. So people take herbs and eat foods to boost their immune system. Why do you boost your immune system? So that the immune system cells can kill, destroy, hate, repel, drive away cancerous cells and other toxins and so forth. So the maintenance of your very life is dependent upon hate. That's a reality that they can't deny, because hate means destruction, rejection, and so forth. And you have a force within your body that is constantly hating or rejecting, destroying, repelling, and so forth. So once you give them the proper etymology and relate it to the body, they're already in agreement. They can't deny that. Then they have to realize that what they've been taught with regard to hate comes from the whites and offspring, because they didn't want us to wage war against them. They wanted us to be able to be tortured by them, and then we just turned the other cheek. So they had to create a fake God and put in the mouth of the fake God that you should never hate your enemy, you should only love your enemy. So when you show that was purely political for criminals to control our people and torture our people with impunity, then the divine hate rises up within the people because they get pissed because they know that was perverse and they want to destroy the enemy as well. So relating it to the body, number one, which they cannot deny, but also giving them, showing that the etymological origin, the root of the term hate, has nothing to do with the European languages. It goes back to our culture, the first culture, and it's actually a title of deities in creation, divine force. Hate is a divine force in creation, a male and female force of divine hate. That's divine order. That is the contracted pole of order. Divine law or love, which is the same word, is the expansive pole of order. The world comes into being via law, and it is sustained through the divine rejection of disorder, the purpose of maintaining the integrity of divine order. So that's the way we typically explain it. And every time we explain it like that, people are always, number one, they're blown away because they've always been deep down inside in agreement with it. And they've always struggled with the fact that deep in their heart, they had that divine rejection, repulsion for disorder and the purveyors of disorder, which includes the white snarl brain. But on the surface, they were brainwashed that they shouldn't be feeling like that. That's like you having the desire to use the bathroom and somebody tells you, you know, it's wrong to use the bathroom. You should never release any fluids from your body because, you know, your body needs fluids so it can be hydrated. And if you release any fluids from your body, then you're doing something wrong. You should never do that. If you have the desire to release any fluids from your body, you're going against your body's natural order. So you're trying to hold in, you know, urine for days because some idiot told you that you shouldn't be releasing fluids from your body. And you're suffering, but at the same time, you believe that you shouldn't do it, so you're making yourself ill and you're engaged in self-destructive activity. If someone comes along and says, actually, your body is designed to release toxins to maintain the health of the body. And once you release it and start living a normal lifestyle, you realize, number one, you were engaged in self-destructive behavior. And number two, you recognize the enemy who taught you that nonsense. So that's always what takes place. Once people get a firm definition, they're free at that point.
For sure. Respect, bro. That's pretty much, you know what I mean. Give me a good little footing to go along with. You know, it's really challenging. You know what I mean, to communicate that reality to a lot of our people. You know, especially women. And that's getting to you, man. Respect to the fullest, man. You know, my comment is, I'm always honored to be able to, be on, the Blog Talk Show and ask questions. And, I don't know how, what type of, traditionally how we would, in our speech give, honor and praise to the ancestors and ancestresses, you know what I mean? But, as you know, when you see, praise to the, the anonymous amountful for the continual, guidance, and to the Abosom as well, and Idemilli. Like you said about, being purified and, representing that resurrection, dealing with Ausar and Auset. You listen to your show for the amount of time that I have. My own individual, I guess you could say, revelations, for lack of better terms, coming from the ancestors and the deities, and then, listening to you, it confirms what they have already been revealing to me, so, everything is everything, Appreciate you, bro.
Okay, and may I say, we really appreciate that. Really appreciate you calling in and sharing your experiences. That's we appreciate it, and I know it will also help others as well who are learning this information as well. So may I say for that.
For sure.
So before we go forward, for individuals in the chat room, there are 5 minutes left with regard to the chat room or online. So if you want to listen beyond 11:30, you must call in on the call-in number, because after 11:30, just if you're just listening online, whether you're in the chat room or just listening online, it'll cut off. But if you're on the phone, then you'll still be able to hear beyond 11:30. And actually, you only have about a little bit more than 3 minutes to call in. So the call-in number is 657-383-0635, 657-383-0635. 657-383-0635. You have about 3 minutes to call in. And for the individuals who may not be able to stay on, one thing that we are actually engaged in right now, which we're going to go into some more detail about, the establishment of our Akongwasuya Dine, which is a physical space for our institution. So if you support the work that we are doing, if you appreciate the work that we're doing, one way to support the work we're doing is we have a fundraising campaign, but any donation of $15 or more, you automatically receive one or more of our soft cover books anyway, so it's not really just giving a donation. It's actually just basically making a purchase. And so whether you make a purchase of the soft cover books, they all range between $8 and $11, or if you made a donation via the GoFundMe campaign on our website, just let us know which one or more of the books you would like to receive in return for your donation, and we will send that out. But that is a way you can support the work that we are doing. We started a campaign in November to establish the physical space for our institution. Of course, we're still doing the work with regard to the institution, but when we can establish the physical space, we'll be able to expand our class offerings. Of course, all of the classes are free. All of the workshops are free. All the presentations. We have 3 different major divisions: the Akom division dealing with ritual healing and so forth, ritual practices, observances. We have the classes when we're talking about classes, not only the broadcast, which will continue, but they will be expanded, but classes in person as well as live streaming, dealing with different aspects of culture, as well as the workshops and so forth, as well as presentations, lectures, documentaries, and so forth that we'll be dealing with in an African-centered homeschooling network activities. And then we also have the Oman Ejuma, the publications, publishing, distributing. We'll have employment opportunities. We do all of our publishing, all of our printing, all of our shipping and so forth in-house. When we're in the center, we'll be able to expand that and employ people in that. But we already have up the entrepreneurship piece. If you would like to become a distributor, you can do that immediately. You can become a distributor of our softcover books. You basically purchase them wholesale and you sell them retail, and you can start that immediately. It doesn't matter what your past work history is. That's already enforced. So any Afuraitkaitnit person who needs to work immediately, you can begin to work immediately. So just contact us about the distribution piece, and the minimum order is just 10 books. Of course, you can order more than that. Of course, they're wholesale and you sell them retail. Support the work that we're doing. Please make a donation, but you will receive one or more books for the donation, or just you can make a purchase of the softcover books on our Nhoma page, the publications page on the website, and we'll put the link to that in the chat room, but you see that on the odwira.com website as well. And yet I'll say for those who have made those contributions, we've had the campaign in effect since November, and we've been expanding our reach. So, for example, a couple of years ago, over the course of 1 year, we had like 470,000+ hits on our website. Last year, because of the work we put in, we had over 1.1 million hits on our regular website, odwira.com. And this year, we are actually in the 9th month of our year, because our year begins September 22nd. We're in the 9th month, because actually this past weekend before this one, on June 22nd, the winter solstice, June 21st, that made 9 months of this year, 13,015, and our year will, our full year be September 21st or whatever. We're in the 9th month, and we're already over 1 million hits, and we're on path to get beyond the 1.1 million hits. We'll probably get to 1.4, hopefully 1.5 or more by September. So we're expanding the reach. So we're getting the information out. Mirase and Yerase to those individuals, those of you who've been sharing the information on your Facebook pages and everything, and sharing the free publications and everything on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and everything else, getting this information to our people so they can begin to incorporate it into their lives, establish their ancestral shrines, deal with their Ka and Kayat through meditation, so they can reform and reestablish and purify their lives, and then begin to connect with one another in a purified fashion, other people who are engaged in the same purificatory processes, so we can engage the process of Amansesew nation building in all of its elements, in all of its spheres, as we talked about those 7 principal values. We started the fundraising campaign in November. We had about 54 people who donated with regard to that. So we're at about 10%. We're trying to raise $25,000 for the opening of the center as soon as we can. We're at about $2,500 right now. So any donation, once again, $15 or more, you will receive one or more of our books. Just notate for us which book you would like to receive. And yet I say to individuals who have donated and purchased books so far. And of course, any book order of 10 books or more is automatically 30% off. So large book orders, some people will order the entire 16-book set. The whole 16-book set is 30% off, so it's $105 for 16 books. The first 10 books, for example, is $66 for 10 books. That's 30% off. So you'll see that any order of 10 books or more is automatically 30% off. But the regular prices of one book or more ranges between $8. Our cheapest book is $8. The most expensive book is $11. Most of them are $9 or $10. So back to the phone line. Michio on the phone line number 3801. You had a question or a comment? Okay, Michelle, on the phone line, number 3801. Okay, so let's see. I want to make sure we didn't have anything in the chat room. We saw some questions or comments. All right, we saw that one. Just want to make sure we didn't miss anybody's comment. So that was just a comment with regard to the misinformation that the whites and their offspring were putting out with regard to this sexuality. All right. Okay, so we're just going to finish up with this example. So we talked about our philosophical approach for establishing Akongwasuya as an institution. And when we talk about, for example, the different divisions, the Akom division of our institution, the ritual and healing. So when we establish the center, we'll be able to have all of the observances, ritual observances, communal observances in the center of the Akongwasuya Dain. Dain means sanctuary or building and so forth. So, for example, we have Akwesi Adai and Awuku Adai. In Akan culture, every 42 days, every 6th Sunday is an Akwesi Adai, a special Akwesi Da, which is an ancestral observance. And in between that cycle is Awuku Adai, which is a small Adai, which is an ancestral observance as well. So basically almost every 3 weeks, an ancestral observance, we'll be able to hold those in the center. That will be a communal thing. Again, once again, we're talking about first Ahojira, self-purification, and then we connect with others who are on the same path. We're naturally inclined to engage in communal activity, collective activity. So we'll have the Akwesi Adai, Awuku Adai. We'll also have our Apoa Fashe and Obrajira observances. Obrajira is our Akan New Year celebration, which takes place the 7-day observance in September. The last day of the observance is the first day of our new year, which is on the autumn equinox. So last year that occurred September 22nd, will be the same this year. So the observance September 16th through the 22nd. We'll also have our Aboa and the ritual movement for health and wellness. We talked about that before. We also have the Adibita divination piece. Okay. And then the second division is Adeswea, classes, trainings, workshops, lectures. So we hold all of our classes there where people will come in person. We will be expanding our class, offering the training, workshops. We talked about some of the trainings, Oberima, Tatasa System, Sangofa Juma with the behavioral health professionals. Tatasa System is the educational curriculum. Oberima, Afurakani Manhood, based on our book, Afurakani Manhood, which we've taken a number of young males as well as older through that particular training. And then they have the book itself, which is a manual for Afurakani Manhood, based on the Abosom of the 7 days of the week. So every single day of the week, there's a principle of manhood that they can focus on every day of their lives and so forth. We have the Akuma Sa, substance abuse abstinence, Akuma Dine, domestic abuse neutralization, Akuma Chora, trauma recovery alignment, ritual methods to overcome substance abuse addiction, ritual methods to overcome the negative effects of domestic abuse, to neutralize those negative effects and discarnate spirits that keep people in those negative cycles, ritual method to overcome intergenerational and transcarnational trauma. So we have that, and of course we have our weekly broadcast, which we'll be expanding as well. Also, public speech, lectures, presentations. It'll also be a center for certain African-centered homeschool networking activities, events, and so forth for children and young adults during the week and on weekends. So all of these different things will be happening. This is part of the Adeswea division of our institution that will be happening in the center. We're already engaged in many of these practices and programs now, but once we have the center, we'll be able to expand this so that the collective Odwiraman, Odwira Nation will be able to participate on a larger scale, as well as live streaming. And then the third division is Homa, publishing, distribution, employment, entrepreneurship. We just talked about that. So we do all of our publishing, printing. We print our books in color and in-house on our own printers. We'll be able to expand that. Right now we have that in our residence. Of course, we'll be able to expand that process once we establish the center. All the printing will be done there. We can have people employed, and we'll have people employed doing the printing, the cutting, the putting the books together and so forth, the shipping, distribution, all of that. That's an employment opportunity. And then we'll also have the entrepreneurship piece. That'll be the center of distribution. We already have, once again, the No Quadifo distributor program in place. So anybody who would like to become a distributor, you can just contact us. That's already in place. But when the center is open, that will be the center of distribution. That'll be the distribution center for those activities. So that when we established it, once again, it was based on those principles that we covered tonight, based on the invocation of Nana Adwoa and Nana Adwo, finding ways to engage the community in a harmonious fashion. We maintain this Akongwaswea, this institution from Chicago into D.C., but we want to expand to the point that we can deal with the collective. We have a natural propensity to engage the collective in a harmonious fashion, so we would like to engage that process. One way to do so, of course, is to release the ebook versions of our publications for free, and we do recommend that anybody who has any kind of information that's beneficial to our people, to at least some of the information free, something that our people can get, even if they don't have any funds. They shouldn't be barred from getting accurate information that can assist them in their life right now, even if they don't have funds. And if they receive some funds later, then they can support. They'll be naturally inclined to support something that they can see some value in. So when you give some information out, we're not saying you have to give the whole thing out, but if you have, some information that is valuable, that's relevant, that can, serve our people in a great capacity, to give something free to the community that benefits the community. So that's a way to engage one another, and it's natural. It's a natural inclination to engage that collective process. Okay, we see there's another piece in the chat room. Just want to make sure we didn't miss if that was actually a question. Okay, it looks like that was just a comment, not necessarily a question. All right. And it looks like we have one more question. Hold on one second. Okay, so there was a question about what goes on a shrine for Ausar, Auset, or just a shrine in general in the Akan tradition. So there are different ways that things are done. If you're dealing with, so for example, when we have an ancestral shrine in the Sama in Comre, we did a publication. We published an article in Comre Ancestral Shrine Communication. We did a basic setup for an ancestral shrine with white candle, a bowl for the water to pour libation into, a stone from the earth mother placed in the bowl to pour the water over. You have the earth, you have the air, of course, you have the fire, and incense, but then a representation of the divine balance of male and female. So we have that basic setup, and we have an article where we went into detail about that, the nature of the ancestral shrine and things like that, the nature of the ancestors and ancestors, their function with regard to us, and we go into detail about that, and we did a broadcast in Combre Ancestral Shrine Communication and Liberation, where we went into detail about that as well. So that's the ancestral shrine. For a shrine for a divinity, in the Akan tradition, or we would say, or just in general, everybody, whether you're Akan, Yoruba, Eve, whatever it is, typically we would have a shrine for our Okra, which is the deity that governs the head region. Ori Inu in Yoruba, and Sebiro and Vodoun, and Chi in Igbo, a shrine for that divinity. And it's different based on different traditions. You can simply, for Akan tradition, we have what is called an Akra Guade, or soul washing ritual. It can be done at a river, but it can also be done at the shrine for your Kra at your home. You can simply have an image, if you would like, of the Abosom, of that particular divinity. And we have a vessel, a kuduo, or a vessel, and it can be a clear vessel or one that's not clear, for the water that you will use to purify the Kra. We talk about that in our book, the Okra Complex, the Soul of AKANFO. That's one of our 16 books. And then we also have a broadcast, Soul Responsibility, talking about SOUL, Soul Responsibility, talking about the Okra, and the ritual to order life. And we're talking about the Okra, the soul washing, Okra Guade, the soul washing ritual, which basically is an invocatory prayer, and then you utilize the water to cleanse your head. Just like you utilize water to clean the physical debris off your head, you utilize that water, the magnetism in the water, after you've invoked the Abosom that governs your Kra, to pull the negative energy off your head so that you can sit down and communicate through Susuho meditation with that divinity. We have, for example, you can utilize a gua, so-called Akan stool. You can utilize a gua for the Kradim Bosom, the divinity that governs your soul name and so forth, the day of the week that you're born. You can utilize a gua for that divinity, and then have a bowl, a vessel for the water that you're going to use to clean your head. You don't have to have a gua for that divinity. You can just have the vessel in and of itself. Because very often, Akan people, they'll just have those large kuduo. Sometimes they're ornate vessels, but they don't have to be ornate. You just have that vessel to cleanse your head. But you can have an image or representation of that divinity on that shrine as well. Because the divinity dwells in your head region, but this just gives a magnification point for the divinity. As we've talked about in the past, shrines are magnifying devices, just like you have a magnifying glass. When the sun is shining on some leaves on the ground, they're just dry leaves. You put a magnifying glass in between them. It's the same sunlight, but the glass will magnify that sunlight, pinpoint it, and cause the leaves to combust. And it's the same is true with the shrine. It is a magnifier of energy of the Abosom. So the Abosom are the forces in nature that animate sun, moon, stars, various aspects of earth and so forth, including the divinity that dwells in your head region. You establish a shrine for that divinity, it magnifies the energy that's radiating from that divinity, and it becomes more intense at that area, and therefore provokes your own spirit so that you can be more in alignment with that energy. So you can put a representation of that divinity on the little shrine space and have the kuduo, or the vessel, or the water that you're going to use to pray into, and then utilize, once it's charged up through that invocatory prayer, utilize that water to cleanse your head. So it's just a very basic shrine setup, but we talk about that in the book, the Okra Complex, the Soul of AKANFO, as well as soul responsibility, talking about the Okra and the ritual to order life. And that's on our YouTube channel as well. All right. Okay, so that looks like that was the final question. So, again, Yedase, we thank you for tuning in to the broadcast. We just wanted to deal with that second aspect of this series, and there's going to be more dealing with the nature of Odwiraman, the purified nation, Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut in the Western Hemisphere. We dealt with that, the first installment of that series was the Odwiraman broadcast, dealing with our identity as Odwiraman, the purified people. And then the second piece tonight, dealing with moving forward and engaging our responsibility, our obligation individually for individual purification, so that we can move forward and engage one another as a collective in a purified fashion as well, so we can naturally and functionally harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions to support every aspect of nation building as a collective, as a community. So in order to do so, we must understand the philosophical foundation, the cosmological foundation for that, and the ritual foundation for that, and that is aligning with Ausar and Auset, or Adwo and Adwoa, as we call them in the Akan tradition. So we just wanted to get that information out so people can begin to engage these processes ritually, and you'll see the benefits of that. Purifying yourself, Ahujira, when you look at our article, Nkomre Ancestral Shrine Communication, as well as there's a series of broadcasts where we dealt with Ancestral Shrine Communication, dealt with the soul, the Ka and Kayet, dealt with the spiritual organs within the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit spirit body, sacred deliberation. We dealt with the Hon, the Aku, and so forth, and the Ab and the Hati, emotional heartening. So we're dealing with all these different aspects of our spiritual being. When you look on the Ojidafo on YouTube, you'll see these different broadcasts. You can download all of them, and they are going into detail about our publications on the same subject matter. So you have the publications, but then you also have the videos and the Blog Talk Radio broadcasts that go into detail about those publications, so you can engage these processes. So again, once again, yet I'll say for those of you who have been supporting the work, again, we are trying to establish that center as soon as possible. I had identified a couple of spaces, but those spaces have been sold over the past few months or occupied. So we have recently, just the other day, yesterday identified a new space that is on the market. We are trying to secure. So if you would like to support that endeavor, again, the support of our softcover books or through the GoFundMe campaign, either way, we would greatly appreciate your support. And Yerase, once again, we thank you for tuning in. And Yebeshia Bio, we will meet again. That's up.